I'm Eleanor Wolfe Hoomes. I write mainly poetry. Before then, I wrote educational materials, but I've also written some short stories along the line. And I have a short story that I'm going to read first, and then I'm going to read some poems. The short story is called Grandma. It's our turn to keep Grandma. Sue Ellen and I take her in turns, 2 months at a time. Sue Ellen and Bobby have had Grandma for the last 2 months, and now it is time for Teddy and me to have her for the next 2 months. It takes 2 months for Sue Ellen and me to recover from our 2-month bout with Grandma. I get off work early on Friday and drive the 20 miles to Sue Ellen's gated community in parking lot traffic. Sue Ellen has notified the guard to let me enter. She never forgets to make the call on Grandma pickup days, but she has been known to forget to notify the guards on other occasions. 2 years ago, Sue Ellen and I decided to swap Grandma on Friday so we could have the whole weekend to sleep before going back to work on Monday. The weekend of sleep is jealously guarded by each of us. I pull into the drive of Sue Ellen's beige stuccoed villa. I sit there for a minute, oblivious to any manicured surroundings, preparing myself to go in, bracing myself for Grandma. I'm telling myself over and over, you will survive Grandma's visit. You will survive. With a deep sigh, I unbuckle my seatbelt, trudge up the flagstone walk, and ring Sue Ellen's doorbell with its 12 rotating musical chimes. Sue Ellen opens the door instantly, falls into my arms, and whispers, "What took you so long, Mary Pat?" I give her a quick hug and take a good look at her. She has lost weight as usual. Sue Ellen and I never have to go on diets because we lose all the weight we gain between Grandma's visits during the time we have her, requiring us both to maintain wardrobes in 2 sizes. "Well, Sue Ellen, you're back to a size 8, I see. Really, hon, I'm on time." "So you are," she concedes when she looks at the antique tall case clock. "It just feels like an eternity. Ruby left an hour ago. Ruby is Grandma's caregiver from 8 until 5, Monday through Friday. Grandma and her oxygen are standing in the arch leading into the great room. The strap of her red leather purse is around the right side of her neck, and she is clutching the purse to the left of her sunken chest. She thinks that everyone, including Sue Ellen and me, is trying to steal from her. "About the time you got here, Mary Pat," she greets me. "How are you, Grandma?" I ask as I peck her cross-hatched cheek. "Dying, and no one cares," she whines in response. She reaches up and pats my cheek, and I am reminded of the soft pat of a kitten that has yet to learn to sheathe its claws. "Oh, sugar, you'll outlive us all," I answer automatically and take a closer look at her. She is dressed for the trip to my house in a new pink jogging suit, white tennis shoes, and a string of pearls. I can see her matching pink scalp through her tightly curled, thin gray hair. Powder is dusted across her nose, and she has 2 round dots of lipstick on each cheek and across her thin lips. "You look great, Grandma," I tell her, and she preens like a little girl. "Is that outfit new?" At her nod, I tell her, "It is so you," and she lights up for a moment. Sue Ellen and I load Grandma, her belongings, and her medications with written instructions into my car. Sue Ellen leans in and gives Grandma one last hug. "I'll call you every day to see how you're doing," Sue Ellen tells Grandma. "You be good now and behave yourself, Grandma." Grandma squeezes Sue Ellen's hand and giggles. "No fun in that, is there?" "No," Sue Ellen and I agree, and we all laugh as if we are hearing this for the first time. Sue Ellen snaps Grandma's seatbelt and softly closes the car door. By the time we arrive at my house, Grandma is drifting away. "Where are we? We're not at Sundale, are we?" she asks as I pull the car into the garage. Grandma is afraid that her sons will send her to Sundale, a continuous care facility. "No, sugar," I reassure her. "We're not at Sundale. We are at my house, your son Teddy's house," I quickly clarify, when she looks frightened. "Can the Reverend Holland find me here?" she asked. "Yes, Grandma, he can," I lie to her. Grandma suffers from advanced stages of emphysema, as well as high blood pressure and heart disease. She now weighs less than 90 pounds. Much too late she stopped smoking, but her body still craves cigarettes. Grandpa provided generously for Grandma before he died 5 years ago, but within 3 years she was broke. What happened to all that money? Teddy and Bobby howled. Then they discovered that for 3 years, Grandma had never recorded a check in her check register and had failed to pay many bills or even to open the envelopes when they arrived. Teddy and Bobby petitioned the courts and were granted joint power of attorney before starting the long process of unraveling Grandma's financial affairs. They were furious when they discovered that Grandma had sent hundreds of thousands of dollars to a TV evangelist. "But son, he's in love with me. He and God have a band of angels surrounding me and protecting me, and they all have to be paid. We're going to get married, you know," she told her baffled and angry sons. Teddy and Bobby sold her house 2 years ago to pay her debts and planned to put Grandma in Sundale. "Over my dead body," I said. "She's my children's grandmother, no Sundale," Sue Ellen stated. Grandma had welcomed Sue Ellen and me into her home and life. She loved us from the beginning. Her grandchildren adored her. Sue Ellen and I looked at each other. "Half a blanket," we said in unison. "Half a blanket?" asked Bobby. "You tell them, Mary Pat. Just the gist," urged Sue Ellen. "Okay. Last year when Sue Ellen and I attended the Cherokee Rose Storytelling Festival, we heard a story entitled Half a Blanket. It was much longer with details and descriptions, but the basic idea ran something like this. Once upon a time, an old grandfather lived with his son, his daughter-in-law, and his grandson. As the grandfather aged, he did less and less work until eventually he just sat by the hearth in the winter and under a shade tree in summer and talked to his grandson, telling him story after story. The son and wife were always busy and had no time to listen to the grandfather's stories. One day late in the autumn, the son and wife told the grandfather that it was time for him to move to the shed. Resigned, the grandfather said, "If you will help me, I will move my bed and blankets to the shed now." "No," the son replied, "just you move to the shed. Everything else belongs to the house and stays here. Leave your bed and blankets behind." The shed had a dirt floor and cracks in the wall. As winter descended, the wind howled through the cracks, the rain blew in, and the snow drifted through the cracks. The dirt floor was always damp and usually icy. The grandfather did all he could to stay warm and looked forward to his grandson's visits every day. The grandson was able to slip some food to his grandfather, but was unable to slip blankets to him. Finally, one bitter day, the grandfather pled, "Grandson, there's a horse blanket hanging on the wall inside the barn. Please take it down and bring it to me so that I can get warm again." "Yes, I will, grandfather," the grandson answered. The grandson went into the barn, removed the blanket from the wall, and with his knife started to cut it into half. The boy's father entered the barn just as the boy finished. "What are you doing?" demanded the father. "Cutting this blanket into half so grandfather can have half to keep warm." "Why are you keeping the other half?" the father asked. "Why, father, so you will have half a blanket when it is your time to go to the shed." "Oh," Teddy and Bobby sighed. "Sue Ellen and I have been taking care of Grandma ever since." "Can the Reverend Holland find me here?" Grandma asked again as we entered the house. "My own son stole my house, you know. The Reverend Holland does adore me so, don't you know? He is so handsome, isn't he? He can find me here, can't he?" "Of course he can find you, sugar." I lied to Grandma again with a clear conscience. We will have this discussion many times during the next 2 months. On Sunday, I take Grandma to church. It takes an hour to get her ready, hook up a new supply of oxygen, and load her into the car while she clutches her red purse. Teddy is sleeping in and playing golf later. When we arrive at church, I help her down the aisle as she smiles and nods to people and settle her into our pew. She promptly goes to sleep with her mouth open, allowing the oxygen to escape through her open mouth as soon as she inhales it through her nose. I reach over a couple of times and close her mouth, but it promptly falls open again. The 3 hours of oxygen is exhausted in 30 minutes. On Sunday night, before I put Grandma in the tub, I take off my new red wool slacks, a cherished Christmas present from my granddaughter, so I won't get them wet. As I'm bathing her, she reaches out and touches my right thigh. I wish I had big, smooth, fat legs like you, she sighs. I look at my size 14 thighs that will be down to a size 12 in 2 months, and then I look at Grandma's hairless stick legs, discolored with varicose veins, old injuries, and new bruises. Everybody does, Grandma, everybody does, I tell her, and we both laugh. After Grandma is tucked in bed, exhausted, I crawl into our king-size bed with her second son. Her second son is snoring and has pulled the covers from my side and wrapped them around himself. She'll outlive us all, hums and then roars in my head. She'll outlive us all. And then I pray, dear God, please don't let Grandma outlive Sue Ellen and me. Thank you. I've been a lifelong gardener, and over the last 20 or so years, I've written quite a number of poems about gardening. I even have a book called Green Thumbs, and the first several poems that I'm reading today comes from Green Thumbs. The last two I've written recently. The first one is called Seduction. I planned to clean my house this morning, to pick things up and tidy them away, to wash the dishes and mop the floors, to polish the silver and dust the doors. But a soft breeze sighed among the trees, tickling the rosemary with light fingers, tinkling the wind chimes with brief kisses, caressing the jasmine, climbing the trellis. A swallowtail flitted among the daisies, a spider's web glittered with morning dew, a mockingbird performed in a dogwood tree, and all outdoors beckoned, luring me. Then dancing on the lawn like a happy child, jumping and twisting, enticing, tempting, a sunbeam called with a seductive smile, come, garden with me just a little while. So, what could I do but laugh and follow? All that housework could wait till tomorrow. I love winter catalogs. The pictures are so beautiful of the plants, and I am just absolutely seduced into making orders. And this is written about a winter catalog. Indigo, Coreopsis, Dianthus, Miscanthus, Osmanthus. What the heck, I'll order them all. In the woodland garden by the rock wall, I'll plant the evergreen Osmanthus and smell its heady fragrance as I stroll by as twilight falls. The indigo and golden moonbeam Coreopsis I'll plant in the butterfly border and let them sprawl and tangle all together. That variegated Miscanthus, planted behind the cerise Dianthus, I can see the way it will please, the vertical Miscanthus waving in the breeze, with the roundly mounded Dianthus hugging, guarding the earth, perfect in its birth. Come spring and summer, they will all be blooming, they will all be performing, they will all be perfuming, just as the catalog promised. Yeah. Georgia red clay. The soil test for pH levels says to add dolomite limestone to red Georgia clay to promote healthy bacterial growth and to suppress fungi. The Griffin Experiment Station says to add organic matter and till in the fall for good drainage and aeration. My gardening grandmother says to plant on Good Friday and with a wink or during a full moon. Then she adds, Use manure tea. Soon you won't notice the stink. With high expectations, I build raised beds for drainage, adjust pH levels with limestone, add organic matter. Then for good measure, add a little nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Check the ratio of organic matter to red clay. Check for fertility, friability, then double dig. Finally, this budding gardening scholar sets out tomatoes and peppers, and to deter cutworms, surround each plant with an aluminum collar. I weed, I mulch, I water. I regularly give the plants a drink of manure tea, trying not to breathe its unique aroma. I erect a scarecrow that becomes a best friend to the voracious. I erect a scarecrow that becomes a best friend to the voracious local fauna. I pick off tomato hornworms. I discard tomatoes and peppers with borer damage. I try to deal with whitefly infestations with blossom end rot and cat face malformations. And then, with sunshine, magic, and luck, my lowered expectations are met. I have homegrown tomatoes and peppers costing only $13 a set. If I had to live on the fruits of my cultivation, I'd be facing imminent starvation. In the fall, I start all over again. The organic components have broken down and subsequently must be replaced. That Georgia red clay is a thorn in my gardening firmament, and I soon learned, dadgummit, it's a thorn that's permanent. The next poem is called A Gardener's Lament. The shadows lengthen, the air cools. It's time to put away the gardening tools. All day I've been digging in the dirt, sweat-soaking shorts and t-shirt, dirt smeared and grass stained, muscles aching so good. Once manicured nails, now rimmed in black, matted hat hair glued to my scalp, 2 water blisters on my right hand, lower back creaking as I stand, knees popping twice, neck burning, stinging from the sun, the sunscreen washed off by sweat. I welcome the rose-streaked sunset. But thank God and knock on wood, my yard sure looks good. Over and over again, I fight the kudzu, the ivy, the weeds, the invasive plants from so-called friends. I fight the Japanese beetles, the fire ants, the deer, the voles, the moles, the armadillos, and the drought. Tomorrow, without a doubt, I'll have to mow, to rake, to spray, to weed, to prune, and to resow. But thank God and knock on wood, my yard sure looks good. By plague and pestilence, I am beset. By too much dry or too much wet, I worry and fret and call it kismet, have no regrets and count my assets. And yes, thank God and knock on wood, my yard sure looks good. Most gardeners develop a special relationship with their pruners. And this I wrote after I lost my favorite pair of pruners. I never did find them. Elegy for lost pruners. Oh, sharp blades of steel, I have misplaced you. An aesthetical treasure no longer manufactured, you are premium quality, perfectly engineered and weighted to fit my gardener's hand. You are designed to deadhead, to shape, to control, to thin for ventilation, to snip for rootings, to clip for compost heaps, to cut roses, verbenas, gardenias, and zinnias for luscious bouquets, and to snip parsley, rosemary, chives, lemon balm, and thyme for culinary extravaganzas. You have been my constant companion for 15 happy gardening years. I love your heft, your honed edges, your balance, your precision, your response to the pressure of my hand. I feel our bond is unbreakable. So why have you forsaken me? Why won't you reveal your location? Where are you concealed, oh sharp blades of steel? This next one is called On the Kinking of Water Hoses. Oh, the water hoses, how they do kink. Tangle my feet, bedevil me until with double cuss words I turn the air blue. Rebellious, they snag on rocks and sticks, they leak at junctures where linked. I paid twice as much for non-kinking hoses. My parched plants thirst for a drink of water. I'm happy to be outside, savoring the joys of nature, except for the dearth of rain, no-see-ums, and inordinate heat. The hoses have ideas of their own, are evil, out to mess with me, stress me. They think, conspire, plan, execute. Let's harass, provoke, torment, beset her together. 1, 2, 3. Leak, snag, kink. Before long, the simple task of irrigation leads to agitation, irritation, and aggravation. I grit my teeth, seethe with anger. Hate those triple cuss-word kinking hoses. Life was not meant for such meaningless tasks as unkinking, expensive water hoses. Fed up, I snarl, "Listen to me, you kinking hoses. I'm boss of this expedition. Get the kinks out and straighten up." So do they? Quadruple cuss word no. 2 hours later, finished. Think maybe I should contemplate the leaks, snags, kinks of my own existence. Just as I unkink and refurl the quintuple cuss word hoses, the heavens open. 2, 3, 4 inches in an hour. Instead of watering plants, I should have built an ark. Now I could wax philosophical about kinking water hoses and how they mirror the vicissitudes of my own existence, and mull over the rejuvenated and destructive power of rain. But sextuple cuss words, no. Instead, I'm lying on my porch swinging bed, reading a bodice ripper historical romance. Today, I won't skip the gratuitous what goes where, when, and how explicit sex. And this is the last one. I'm all stove up. I'm all stove up. 2 days ago, I began rearranging my hilltop retreat, which 3 years ago started out to be a Japanese garden, but early on took a turn towards something else. For 2 days, I moved rocks, reset stepping stones, relocated potted plants, pulled weeds, shifted an iron bench, leveled a 6-foot wooden bridge, raked, swept. Today, I'm all stove up. 4 Advils later, I'm considering a shot of gin, well, several shots of gin, and I don't drink. My neck is stiff, hands numb, arms tingling, knees bruised and sore, feet complaining, thighs protesting, nose peeling, back throbbing, nape brick red, stomach muscles screaming. Yep, I'm all stove up. But by Jove, I say with pride, the hilltop retreat is finished, at least for now. Though I hobble, walk bent over, bitch and moan, it was worth every ache and pain. I write this free verse ditty, sitting on that shifted iron bench, self-satisfied, basking in a job well done. Nevertheless, I'm all stove up. I need more Advil, maybe that shot of gin. At the drop of a rake, I do it all over again. Today I can only manage, and barely that, paper and pen to scribe these hyperbolic lines. The weeds have snuck back in and are running amok, but they'll have to wait till my back is straight, because, oh my stars, today I'm all stove up.